Welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast. My name is Scott. I'll be your host today. Got an in-studio guest for you today. Very happy to bring him on. Going to have him on in just a moment. First, a few announcements. As always, you can find this and the back episodes of our podcast at our website. It's called ordinarymarathoner.com. More importantly, though, this week, the Ordinary Marathon, our virtual race, is now open for registration. We've had just a really good demand in the first few days. You guys have been signing up. I can't thank you enough for participating in this event. We're raising money for American Cancer Society. It's only $25 to register and to be a part of it. The Million Moon March that we did, the last race, was fantastic. We had a great time. And, social media really kind of blew up on that one. We were all over the place, people asking us how to get involved and things like that. So we are looking forward to a repeat performance of the virtual race, the Ordinary Marathon. And you don't have to run a full marathon to take part. We just named it that because it's the Ordinary Marathoner. So it's Ordinary Marathon. Sounds pretty good. But we want to support you. We want to get you up and running. And, we have 10 days to run. So if you want to make it a goal that you run a marathon over 10 days, that's great, but you don't have to do that either. We just want you to, sort of celebrate the sport of running alongside us and really just stay positive and just bring a strong message. We're going to do raffles. We're going to have, we're going to have a blast. So head on over there. Look, if you go on the website, Ordinary Marathoner, and you look towards the right, you'll see a little Ordinary Marathon logo. If you're using your phone, you're going to have to scroll down until you get underneath the podcast and you'll find it there. But click on the links there and you'll get to the registration page and you can register from there. And we'd love to have you aboard. There's still room. We have about 250 slots total. So there's a bunch remaining and we're looking forward to having you. Our sponsors, just want to mention our sponsors quickly for the Ordinary Marathoner include the SAM Fund, a great charity helping cancer survivors, Nathan Sports, Greasy Girl Headbands, spelled Greecie. They also sponsor the podcast. Great people over at Greasy Girl Headbands. Momentum Jewelry donated 25 footnotes. Those footnotes, unfortunately, are already spoken for. We've had over 25 registries for the race. But thank you so much to Momentum Jewelry and Destination Vacation. I want to mention them specifically. The woman Jen DeMoore, who runs Destination Vacation, and you can find them, by the way, it's destination-vacation.com. So her husband is a member of our discussion group over on Facebook. His name's Dan DeMoore. And this past weekend, he ran his very first half marathon. And amazing accomplishment, Dan. I'm so proud of you, man. I'm so proud of you for being involved in the discussion group, for sharing your successes, and you really earned that medal. And Doug Massey, your pal there, he ran his first full marathon on the same day. Congratulations, Doug. Dan, this is a podcast you're going to want to listen to. The guy I'm bringing on is a motivational speaker. I know you have accomplished that half marathon, but you have bigger and better goals. And I can't wait to support you on your journey and to keep watching you from a distance and seeing how you do. Cause I know you're going to achieve everything you set out to achieve. You're just in that right frame of mind. And it's wonderful to see. Other places you can find us. Well, first of all, on that discussion group that Dan is a part of, it's over at Facebook. It's called Ordinary Marathoners, and you can add yourself to that group. It's a closed group. So it's kind of just our community that sees all the posts there, and you can add yourself to the group. We'll accept you into the group right away. You can join the conversation if you feel comfortable doing that. It's a very safe space to talk. It's a very supportive group, like I said. Very positive messages going on there. And if you have questions, if you have comments, just leave them right there in the discussion group. Or if you want to be a lurker, that's fine too. I know how it is sometimes a little uncomfortable, especially with people you don't really know. So join the group, check it out, use it as you see fit. But it has been a wonderful place for a lot of people. And you can also find me over at Twitter. The handle there is @OrdMarathoner. That's ORD Marathoner. And if you follow me there, I'll follow you back. We can get the conversation going on Twitter as well. So we've had lots going on. I'm going to bring in our guest right now. He's a motivational speaker. I met this guy about a week or two ago. Yeah. And man, it just he impressed me. Just me, the kind of person you just meet and just leaves an impression on you. He's like, you could just tell he's got like a real strong will. And I think when he finds out how much I've been slacking off in my workouts lately, he's going to kick my ass. But his name is John Martin. John, welcome to the show.
Awesome, man. Life is good. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. I know it's, coming, I had to drag into my house in studio.
It's great, man. I love it.
And so listen, well, I guess, I kind of wanted to start from the beginning with you.
Sure.
And I know, this is what I know about you. Other than what we just talked about 10 minutes before the podcast started. I know you're a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
And I know bits and pieces of your personality makeup just from what I've met you. But I gotta say, once I met you and someone told me, oh, he's a motivational speaker, I'm not surprised.
I appreciate that.
You got like sort of like an intensity about you that I like. It's like motivating. It's like, you're an intense guy.
Yes, sometimes a little bit too much. I'm trying to work on that balance, but I've been told that before.
So let me ask you this: I kind of want to take a step back before we kind of get into the motivational speaking discussion, and say, how'd you get into this? What's your background, sort of like educational background? Like, how does one decide that they're going to get into this sort of department area?
So for me, it's really, I trace it back. And we'll certainly talk about the motivational speaking piece. First and foremost, it's awesome to be here. I'm glad we had a chance to meet a couple weeks ago. Yeah. I'm always attracted to like-minded people and people that I think, despite all of the other things we have going on in our lives, work, family, all of that stuff, find time to attach passion with purpose. And so when our buddy was, talking to me about you, I was really glad I had a chance to meet you. For me, I grew up in Western Mass. Have one older brother. My father, who is still my best friend and my idol to this day, worked in education. He worked in urban ed. So my dad started off as an English teacher, became a school counselor, and he worked in Springfield, Mass, the old Chestnut Street Middle School, and then towards the end of his career over at Kiley Middle School. My first introduction to working with kids, I always sort of had a affinity for helping people. Right. Even as a young kid, definitely competitive in athletics and did all of the things that a lot of kids growing up in the late 80s and early 90s did when the neighborhood as we knew it still existed in this country.
Right.
And I think that's lost today too. And that's a whole nother conversation. Right. But I loved sports, loved being around people. And my father, I remember my mother and father throughout my brother and I's athletic experiences, school experiences, they never missed anything. But I also remember how much, and this still resonates with me to this day, and I really enjoy speaking on it. I remember how much my father truly enjoyed the work he did, even in an environment that a lot of times was less than favorable. He had so much love for those kids and those families. And that was just an extension of who he was as a dad anyways. Yeah. Definitely strict, old school, but so much love in his heart.
So did you, I know, you're a guidance counselor, is that?
Yeah.
So did you kind of find that path, sort of through your father's influence?
Without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, no question. When I first started working with kids, I was in college. And so I reached out to my dad, and this wasn't attached to an assignment or anything. It was just something that was kind of, spoke to me and something that I wanted to do. I felt very fortunate to be raised the way that I was in the environment that I was. And I had a good sense even early on that not everybody had those sort of luxuries. And not that we were rich by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, my father worked in a public school, you know what I mean? Yeah. We were blue collar, middle class, but, so I called my dad and I said, hey, I want to volunteer at your school. I don't care what you have me do. I'll do anything you want. I just want to be around those kids. I want to see if this is for me. So you talk about trial by fire. I went in, I was 19 years old. I went to the old Chestnut Street Middle School in the north end of Springfield. And my father attached me to two young people that he explained to me needed some help with their grades. Their attendance was horrendous and their grades were horrendous. But, as I got to know these two kids and developed a relationship with them, their stories are what drew me to them. And really, I think drew me to what I do now. I immediately became, just enamored with how I could become more effective and be an agent of change in their lives.
Yeah.
And these were two female students who, at 13 years old, were already initiated gang members.
Wow.
And the stories that they shared with me were not at all like my upbringing at 12, 13, 14 years old.
Isn't it incredible?
It was beyond incredible.
And the two of us, but you mentioned you have a daughter who's my daughter's 8, who's age 8. My daughter, I see her as so innocent. And so, like she hasn't been.
And we want to trap that, right?
Right. We want to keep that as long as you can. Right.
Slow it down. I know.
And the thought that someone, at 12, 13 can know, can be an adult pretty much, or be forced towards,
the life that they lived, to some degree out of necessity.
Yeah.
But also, as a product of their environment to some degree. The life that they were explaining to me that they were living at 12 or 13, I didn't even know at 19 and 20 when I first went in there. Do you know what I mean? That was the difference. And so for me, it immediately, as I look back on my career now, after almost 20 years of doing it professionally, that was sort of the catalyst for me, the jump start for me. And that's what I remember saying to my dad shortly after I started working with those girls, this is what I'm going to do. I know this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So,
and I got to tell you, so we spoke a little bit before the show, and you and I actually have more parallels than I mean, I feel like just hearing you, I very much
connect.
You're
way tougher than I am, man. You've run marathons and Ironman. That's not even in my wheelhouse.
You'd be surprised. But you talk about like parental support and your father being involved. My father never missed a game.
Yeah.
I went to college 2 hours away from where I lived. My father never missed a football game ever. He drove, I gotta tell you, he did miss one. And the reason he missed it was in Pittsburgh. We played Duquesne and it snowed that day and he got caught in traffic in the snow.
But he was on his way to the game.
He was on the way to the game. He turned around and I got hurt that game.
See that?
The only game he ever didn't go to.
And he was probably pissed that he missed that game.
Right. But man, it's just, and it's in a way, it's like I connect to the message that you're just giving, because I feel like, it's almost like when you're living it and you're in your childhood, you kind of take all that stuff for granted. And then as you get to be an adult, like you kind of had this epiphany sort of at the age of 19. And, I think it's great that happened for you, because it got you to focus on
without a doubt,
and help people, which is really, I mean, we try to do that a lot on the podcast, and
there's no question.
A lot of the people in our discussion group, they're after goals, or they're looking for, and it's not, I put the discussion group together on advice of a friend, and the people that are in there, they motivate me.
That's right.
So I wasn't expecting that to happen. You know what I mean?
It's one of the greatest gifts we can receive in our attempt, I think, to help other people. And what these, and I'm sure you hear from a lot of people all the time, Scott, that are so thankful for the Ordinary Marathoner and the podcast and the Facebook pages and the discussions. And they say to you all the time, I'm sure, you have no idea how much you've helped me.
I do get that. And you know what? I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. But it's humbling, right?
It is. That's what I mean.
And that's the greatest gift.
It is.
And for me, what I always share back is, for as much as you think I've helped you, or as much as you've taken from me, rest assured that I've taken just as much from you.
And that's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
And so what better sort of avenue to get involved in than really just people gathering and trying to get the most out of each other. And it's just like, and it's kind of like weird to say. I mean, I don't know. It's like sort of like, I'm sort of an individualistic. I don't like even this podcast, like I do it on my own. I don't really have a lot of help, and I don't, but I don't like it that way.
Yeah. You've got complete creative control.
Yeah.
To take it wherever it goes.
But then again, I wouldn't be anywhere without the people that that are surrounding it.
The tribe, man.
Yeah, it's it's a wonderful feeling. It's a wonderful thing to do, and I think that's why I think when you were telling your stories, I'm like, this is like, it's resonating with me, like, because I feel like there's just a lot of similarities.
Yeah,
there.
and I think you bring up an interesting point, which a lot of people I don't think stop to think about, which is, we get so hung up on how busy our lives are that we don't stop just to get present and put our feet down and just be where our feet are and say, hey, wait a minute. What am I, as crazy as my work life is, my travel schedule, my family obligations, all of that stuff, life is pretty good. And I have a chance to, and I'm speaking about you now, but I have a chance to help other people through something that I love to do that has been a life changer for me. Why wouldn't I pass that on freely to somebody else? I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal,
Absolutely. So, so we kind of, we left you off sort of in the middle of your,
that's all right.
So you're with these two now. I know, is there more with that story that we need?
No, I mean, so that's
kind of how you got involved.
Yeah. Then fast forward, I get my undergraduate degree. I get in education.
Yeah. You're coaching also, you said?
Yeah. I started coaching my senior year in college. Back at my old high school, I was one of my mentors as an adolescent, was the head coach there at the time. I ran into him in the summer and I said to him, hey, I'd love to give back in some way to a program and a school that I really feel like gave me so much. So I went back and volunteered my senior year in college while I was finishing up my degree. I was very, very fortunate after that college year. There happened to be a woman who was expecting a child. The principal of the high school I work at now called me and said, hey, I understand you're getting your degree in health studies and education. It just so happens that one of our teachers is leaving. We'd like you to come in for an interview. The rest is history.
Wow.
So 19 years
later. You've been there for 19 years.
Yeah. Started in the classroom. While I was in the classroom, I got a couple more master's degrees.
Yeah.
One in educational psychology, the other in adjustment counseling. And over the last 13 years, I've served as a school counselor for grades 9 through 12 kids.
Yeah.
And then
so how do you get all this time? And then the speaking on top of all this.
So people ask me that all the time. And
this is where the intensity comes in, folks, too. This is like, so many of us go to work, we come home, we watch TV, we go to bed.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to break that cycle. And this is exactly what John's doing. It seems like he's been doing it for quite a while. How do you do it?
Yeah. See, for me, honestly, it's not the intensity. I feel like it's the intention. And so, yes, just good, bad, or indifferent. I'm definitely a type A guy and, tend to be pretty intense at my endeavors. But what I've learned, it's no secret that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And so what I've learned specifically over the last couple of years, because I juggled all of these things unproductively for a very long time.
Yeah.
And in just being transparent at the expense of, my beautiful wife, my kids, I wasn't doing a good job of the stuff that was most important.
Yeah.
And so over the last 2 or 3 years, I would say I've done a much better job of being very intentional with my time.
Priorities.
And if you just look throughout the course of a day, how much time we waste on stuff that is not essential.
It's incredible.
We waste
hours,
a ton of time. Well, I need that 9 hours of sleep. Well, I don't need 9 hours of sleep.
Right.
I can be very effective on less than that. I'm fortunate. I need to go to the gym for 2 hours. Well, I don't need to go to the gym for 2 hours. I need to train for 45 minutes to an hour and make sure I don't stop. You know what I mean? So it's about shaving those things off that
being more efficient,
way more efficient and more intentional,
and not wasting it. Yeah.
No. And so that's been a huge help for me. So I find time by I've created for myself and I speak on this as well, especially when I do work with teams. I do a lot of work with college teams, and I've been very fortunate over the last couple of years to work with some professional athletes. And one of the biggest things that we talk about are the non-negotiables. And so for me, there are certain things that I have created in my day, every day, and these are fluid. These change, right? So none of these are set in stone. As you work with your marathoners or you personally in your own training, there are certain things that you'll have to give up in order to reach your goals as a runner or an Ironman. And there are certain things you'll have to add. It's just, it's part of the whole cycle of training. So for me, I create those non-negotiables all the time. Anything that comes into my life that is outside of those non-negotiables, I will only entertain if there's time, period. So I've gotten really good at saying no. That was a huge fault of mine for almost my entire adult life. And I've gotten much better at it.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this. Is this something that do you write it down? do you schedule time during the day, or is this something that you're kind of like winging it, but prioritizing in your head?
No, I tried to wing it for a long time with all the best intentions.
Yeah.
When you have that heart to heart with your wife and again, just being candid, because my whole thing is, if I can share anything, either on your podcast or through the platforms or the space that I'm fortunate enough to have that can help one person, by no means is my world perfect and without flaw and trouble. But when your wife has that heart to heart with you and says, you know what, I don't know if this is working. You're just not present. And even when you're here, you're not here. That was a gut punch for me. And so this is when I started to do a lot more reading and seeking help and talking to people that I trusted. And so for me, I tried to wing it, right? So I tried
it's not easy.
No,
it's not easy
because life gets in the way.
Right.
And so now, yes, I write it down.
And you know what? I kind of want to talk about this a little bit on the back end of after we cut to the break, but, specifically, like I've gone through like some different phases in the last 3 years of there are months, almost a year where I felt like I was on it every day and I was, with it. And then, what happens to me is I hit my goals. I have a specific goal in mind and I hit it. And then I think I can keep going the way I'm going. And then something happens where the switch kind of flips and it's not like I become like a reject or, completely socially inept or anything like that. It's like the motivation's not as strong as it was. And
part of that too is probably because some of the fear has been eliminated,
Yeah. Which is exactly what a lot of people have said. But, but I want to get on the back, I guess before we get there though, so these speaking engagements, you said, what kind of teams do you speak to? Or do you, is it corporate teams too?
It varies. I've done work at, I've been really, really fortunate.
And how long have you been doing the speaking?
I've been doing the public speaking. A lot of people call it motivational speaking. I really prefer to call it change speaking. We talked a little bit about this before the show aired, but if you look at the research around strictly motivational speaking, 90% of the audience is going to lose most of the message about 10 minutes after they walk out of the auditorium or wherever it is. So the reason that I specifically call myself a change speaker is because I don't just want to go in and get people fired up for an hour. I want to be able to go in and share something that resonates with them, that they can start to take a step to truly try to change their life in a positive way, where their work, and I don't mean career, their work on themselves becomes meaningful, where they can actually take away strategies that they can implement in their own lives to try to help them. The short answer to your question is I've been doing it close to 15 years, but I've only been doing it as sort of a serious, I don't even like to call it a business, because for me, the only types of things I'm going to get involved with right now outside of my family are areas of passion, because that's the only way I can be authentic. And so for me, it's become a real source of passion and purpose, I would say, over the last couple of years. And the teams have varied. I've done things as small as professional development for educators. And I've done, just last week, I spoke at for a college football program. I was in a room with 100 athletes and 20 coaches. And everything in between. I've also done individual work with athletes at every level: professional, college, high school.
So at this point, you're pretty much comfortable, I assume, like kind of getting in front of a group like that?
Oh, I love it. I love it. The first time I ever did it, rewind 10 years, 12 years.
Which, by the way, there's a potential. I might be giving a speech, my first one in October of this year.
Awesome.
And I'm excited and nervous about it at the same time, and I don't even really know what my message is going to be quite yet. I still have time to figure it out.
Absolutely.
But I'm kind of like, I'm trying to live vicariously a little through you.
No, I think the best thing to do though, I can only be me. You know what I mean? I watch a lot of speakers, and some I'm blown away by, and others I'm not as much. And it's not that their message isn't great, but you can always tell, and as well in your work, you can tell very easily who's being authentic and who isn't. I only know how to do it one way. For some crowds, it works really well, and others are like, "Hey, you were great," but they never call back, and that's okay too. So I tell people all the time, "Hey, I want to try this." They say to me, "I want to try this speaking thing." I say to everybody, "Give it a go."
Yeah, you never know until you're out there. Really, kind of. It's. When you said I deal with it at work, I do deal with it very specifically. I talk to a lot of salespeople all day long, and when these are professional salespeople, and it's like, after a while, I've been doing this for like 20 years. So you get this like bullshit radar.
Of course.
So you can kind of feel when someone's being, genuine and when they're not. And so, I've been watching tons of motivational speakers over the last couple months, just, I think because I'm searching for something and I don't really know quite what that thing is yet, but I've been watching a lot of these speakers and it's almost like, when you get someone it's almost like they're selling the message as opposed to
believing the message.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between the two.
And I don't go for that.
No,
like
I've been asked, I get calls often to say, hey, would you come in and speak to our team, and not necessarily a sports team, but would you come in and speak to our team, whether it's a leadership team at work or, and they'll tell me here, we want you to speak on this, this, and this. And I'm very upfront with them. And there's been times where I've said, none of that resonates with me at all. Yeah, but we'll pay you really well. We saw you speak. We love your energy. You can come in. And I tell them, you don't understand. When I go out and speak, it's because it's stuff that I'm A, trying to practice in my own life. B, after 20 years of doing the job, I've seen it work in the lives of the kids, athletes, and families that I've been so blessed to work with.
Yep.
So I'm not fabricating a message that I don't believe in.
Yeah.
I can take the message that I share and I can certainly change it a bit and weave it into,
try to apply it to their situation,
to the mission statement of your company or what you're looking for. But I can't change the message because that's the only way I'm going to be able to present authentically. It is the only way I'm going to be able to stand and deliver, whether it's 10 people, 100 people, or 1,000 people. And I've done it in all of those sizes. So I can't do it any other way.
So what would you say, and I don't know if you can compartmentalize this in a very short summary.
I could try.
What would you say is your message?
So for me, and I can compartmentalize it for you. I really want people to be able to tap into their why. And I want people to believe in their ability to write their own story. And I cannot stress that enough. We live in a world where our idea of what having it all means or being successful means, or it's been created by other people. And we spend so much of our time, attention, and energy focusing on what others have, don't have, what they do and don't do, that we absolutely tap ourselves of our ability to really draw into our own talents, strengths, and gifts to write our own story. When I talk to kids, and I do it all over the country, I tell them your life is a book of blank pages. The first 15 years have been filled. Some of it is great stuff to read and other stuff sucks. But the beauty of this life is that it's yours and you get to fill those pages with whatever you want. So my message, whether it's corporate, teams, individuals, it's getting kids, families, adults to tap into this notion that you are absolutely in charge of your journey. You get to write this story, nobody else.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I just watching one of the speakers I watched yesterday, and I don't even remember which one, but I heard the stat, and I don't know where they got this from, but this is the stat that I heard, was 87% of the people out there that have 9-to-5 jobs are miserable and despise their jobs and despise what they do all day long.
It's true.
And that's, and I think,
because there's this notion that, and then everybody will talk about, and I could talk about this forever because I read on it all the time, but this work-life balance, it's bullshit.
Doesn't really exist.
Well, there's just life.
Yep.
There's just life. The notion that we would even put work in the same sentence with life shows you
that's true.
Shows you the value that our society.
I never thought of it that way.
It's sad.
There should be no distinction.
There's just life. There's no work-life balance. It's just life, and the fact that work takes up all of that time is so sad, and that's why people are miserable.
That's why you have a job.
But the good news for me is I have a job that I love.
There's 87% of the people looking for you,
and if I hate it, I'm going to go do something else.
That's true. On that note, let's cut to break right now. This is great, man. I love the discussion. We can keep going. We can keep going as long as we want.
Sure.
But we'll be right back after the break with John Martin. I want to tell you guys about another great small business I've come across while doing this podcast. It's called Greasy Girl Headbands. I know. I have very short hair, so what could I possibly know about headbands? Well, I know that I bought one for my wife Stephanie and daughter Samantha this Christmas. Stephanie, she uses it for what it was designed for, running and working out. But 8-year-old Sam, well, she just wears hers all the time. So the question is, how can you get one? Well, that's easy. You head on over to greasygirlheadbands.com. It's spelled Greeecie girlheadbands.com and select from the many styles and options they have available. I'm sure you'll find one that's just perfect for you. Hey guys, my friend Lauren is creating an incredible resource for runners and triathletes. It's called raceadvisors.com. She has amassed a list of thousands of races, 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, marathons, ultramarathons, and triathlons, and anything in between. If you're thinking about running a race, look it up and check out the reviews. Have a favorite race of your own? Look it up. See what others have to say about it. Or better yet, leave a review of your own. raceadvisors.com. Read it, race it, review it. All right, we are back from break. I'm here with John Martin in studio, and John. So your motivational speaking, you have like a platform now that you're starting to build out.
Yeah.
Where can we find you? Where can we get a hold of you? Social media and that kind of thing. I know your Twitter account is Real John C. Martin.
Yeah. So it's the same across all forms of social mediums. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Real John C. Martin. And
Facebook too is the same thing. Yeah. And so I noticed on your Facebook today. So I was kind of trying to find questions to ask you and things like that. Yeah. So you have this slogan. It's called "Win Today."
Yeah.
And is that like something that you have sort of created or you have adopted? I know it's like a hashtag. Is it like, is it a thing that you own or is it?
Yeah. So just like everything else in the English language, we all take them from somewhere. But one of the things that always resonated with me throughout my playing days in athletics, and then as I've heard people speak, and you as a former football player, I used to say to my athletes all the time, another day to get better when we go out to practice. And I truly feel that way as a man and a father and a husband, brother, whatever. So a couple of years ago, I started coining the phrase, and I don't know whether I heard it somewhere and it just stuck with me,
right.
But I started using it just, hey, let's win today. It's certainly something that I use now as a platform when I do my speaking. And it really centers around this notion that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing we should do is say thank you, because a lot of people aren't as fortunate, right? So I truly feel that way, that, I start every day on my knees with a prayer of thanks, because tomorrow's not promised. We have this moment. And so I try to encourage myself to start the day to, hey, win today. There's no rewind button in life. Whatever happened yesterday is gone. And I got another 24, hopefully, to get this thing.
It's that whole, that carpe diem.
Seize the day, man.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah. And it is, I do own it now in terms of what I'm trying to do through a podcast that I'm going to be launching shortly.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. Cause, it's funny. Like we were just talking and I'm like, you'd think that, John having a podcast, maybe we'd be like competitive, or there'd be like a little competitive, but I like talking to other podcasters and plugging other podcasts, because I know the kind of the work that goes into it, and especially people that are doing it for the right reasons. I think that my listeners could probably benefit from listening to your podcast, which isn't out yet, but you're working on it.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and vice versa. I feel the exact same way. And what I found, at least in its infancy, I've just gotten it started, is that most people are more than willing to, especially that share the same type of space that we do in trying to help others with whatever their goals are.
Yeah.
I can't wait to have you on and have a discussion as well. So yeah, I started recording about a month and a half ago. I've been very, very fortunate that I have a couple partners that have jumped on with me and have heard me speak over the years, believe very strongly in my message. One of them is Cloud9 Marketing Group, right out of East Long Meadow, Mass, and the other is a company by the name of Seven Roads Media.
I'm gonna write these down. I might have to.
They're phenomenal guys. They really are.
Maybe they can help me with my sound. My listeners know I've been having issues with my sound.
And they're just you know what it is about them too, that they too are in it for the right reasons, and I'm so grateful for them, because honestly, when it comes to the technology around this stuff, I am lost. So plugging in a microphone is difficult for me. So they've been awesome. So those guys are, they co-produce the show. I've got, I think as of this podcast that you and I are doing, I think I have 7 or 8 in the tank. I'm going to do a couple more tomorrow, and tomorrow is when we're going to start introducing some guests to see how that works. And I'm, again, super, super fortunate through my work and the ability that I've had to travel the country and speak. I've met some amazing people. And these are people that I've reached out to over the last couple months that are all in and trying to help me not just grow the brand of Win Today, but the message behind it, which really is what matters to me. And the goal for me remains the same. I just want to try to inspire other people to improve their lives in any way possible. So I've got all different kinds of people coming on from all different walks of life.
So, so let me ask you this. So when it comes to like your style, so, like I feel like you're like, we talk about your intensity and you're sort of like that. Are you like the kind of guy that really just like tries to pound this stuff into people's head? Or, I mean, it seems to me, I'm trying to think of a way to phrase it. Like, I guess, like how much patience do you need to have with people and I'm asking this for myself, because I feel like, if I was a motivational speaker, I'm working with somebody and it's like you're trying to drive that message home and it's just not clicking, not having the results that they want. Is there a certain point where you're like, all right.
For me personally, no, it's an awesome question, but their output and their willingness to change is not going to change my output. If you kind of so I only know how to do it one way when I go speak. Now, what I've learned about myself through doing the podcast is that, I don't personally think if I'm going to record 25, 50, 100, 1,000 episodes, at some point, who I am, if I try to fake it, at some point, who I am is going to come shining through, right? So, is it about pounding it into people's heads? No, I think for me, the way I look at it is I want to share with folks with every ounce of passion that I have what's important for me. And I'm very realistic in knowing that some of it will resonate with some people and some people will be turned off by the way that I deliver the message. I'm okay with both, because some people are just, they're not ready to have a conversation like you and I have. They're not ready maybe to hear, you know what, I'm not going to validate the bullshit of you telling me that it's everybody else's fault that you're not where you're at in life. It's just not something I'm going to validate. And so if you're that person, my space probably won't be for you. But what I try to do is I try to keep the spin very upbeat, very positive. And in the guests that I have lined up, what I think will resonate with people is whether they are at the top of their careers or are coming off of 20 years of a substance abuse addiction, but they've been sober now for 2 or 3 years. What I hope resonates with people is that everybody has the tools to write their own story once they decide that they're going to tap into them and sort of ignore the outside noise. We talked before about the non-negotiables.
Yep.
So I'd like to think I'm creating a platform where I keep it really simple for people. But yes, my personality is definitely going to shine through, for better or worse.
Right. So, and I think you're going to understand this point from your background in coaching, because I got it from there. But actually, I think initially I sort of learned this playing, which was when you're sort of in this leadership position and you're trying to either motivate or inspire, that kind of thing. And say for me, it would be like talking in the huddle, playing football.
Sure.
I found that there were some people who needed to be fired up, scolded, like you could yell at, like if you told them that they were playing like crap and they got to go and,
their next rep's going to be a lot better.
Well, right. And then there were certain other people that if you did the same thing to them,
shut right down.
Sure. So do you change the message in the circumstance or do you change the delivery in that circumstance? And how do you do that to an audience?
Yeah. So I think the message won't change, but I think the delivery will change. 20 years of working with adolescents, I have learned that just what you shared, there are some students I work with now and families where I can close my door and I can go up one side of a kid and down the other and know that kid is going to respond in a way that I think will help he or she grow. 10 minutes later, I could have a kid walk into my office that needs me to put my arm around them and tell them, hey, I love you. And you're gonna get through this, but the only way to get through it is to get through it. You got to face it. You can't run from it. And so, in again, just being transparent, I'm hoping to find my way as I go.
Yeah.
But this is not going to be a podcast where I'm screaming for 45 minutes or an hour.
Well, I think, it's funny because I met you for 20 minutes the other night.
Yeah.
And I could kind of sense the intensity, but now that I'm talking to you for a good hour or so, there's a smoothness there. You got a sensitive side. I'm sensing
there's
it.
No doubt. And actually,
Talk about your kids. You're talking about
I embrace it. I tell people all the time, and my kids know it too. They, if they run into people, they're like, kids are like, "Oh man, it must be tough. Your dad is so tough," and they're like, "He is," and I am, but I embrace that sensitive side. Yeah. And so I through my work with adolescents, to do it for as long as I've done it with the passion that I've done it for, if you don't have love in your heart for the kids the product in my line of work, it's human beings, right?
Right.
I'm looking to shape the lives of human beings. And so I view all those kids as if they were my own. I love them that much, and they know it.
Yeah. And I would say probably the payoff for you,
it's not the check. I can tell you that.
Well, I was going to say the payoff for you is when, a couple years go by down the line and someone comes back to you and goes, "Hey man, I saw you speak, or you helped me out, and it changed my life, or it changed, everything you said was right," things like that. And
it's the single greatest gift in my line of work.
Right.
You just shared.
It overcomes any monetary.
And it's never, and as much as we talk about it in the world, like money isn't everything. You don't measure success by how much money you make. There's obviously some truth to that, but we all need it to live in the way that we choose to live. And
right.
That's different for everybody. But for me, the facts for me are, and this is very real, is that when a kid shares that with me, it's the reason I've kept the passion for the job I've had for 20 years. I spoke at a school last year. I did 2 sessions at a high school, and one was a middle school session and the other was a high school session. And I share this for anybody that's listening because I think in whatever line of work you're in, whatever you do, the ability that we have as human beings, forget my line of work as a counselor, none of that matters, but the ability that we have as human beings to truly affect somebody's life, I think we take for granted. And the greatest gift we can give somebody else is our time, because we exchange part of our life for it, right?
Absolutely.
We only have so much time here. So there was I did a presentation, and this young kid, I'm packing up my stuff and I'm talking to some folks that are sort of just milling around. And I see that there's this young kid, small in stature, but he was a high school student. And you could tell he was uncomfortable, but you could tell he wanted to talk to me. And so I walked up to him and, I just extended my hand and I said, "I don't know if I had a chance to meet you personally, in the auditorium, but I wanted to introduce myself. I saw you hanging around." And he shook my hand and he just started bawling.
Oh God.
Just started bawling his eyes out. And so I was a little bit taken back. I was like, man, my presentation must have sucked. But no, so this young man and we ended up talking for about 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And, it ended really well. I gave him a hug. I told him, I really appreciate you taking the time to stop and talk with me. And the principal of the school came up to me after I shared this conversation with this young man. And the principal said that he's a sophomore in high school, and that's the first adult they'd seen him communicate with since he'd been at the school. And I
was kind of like shut down.
Oh man, it was so I immediately said to the principal, "Please, could you get me his family's contact information? I want to stay connected with this kid." Yeah. And so we still chat to this day from time to time. And
how long ago was that?
That was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
That's cool. So that's why I do it.
Yeah.
And people that are listening, I can't overemphasize.
It almost gets bigger than you, doesn't it?
It's way bigger.
It's like bigger than you. I've had moments with this thing, and I'm like,
it's way bigger.
I'm like, I don't feel like doing a podcast, and I don't feel like, and then I think like,
but there are people counting on you.
Yeah, like so. It's like it's.
But the gift is that you understand that in our world, a lot of people associate fame and greatness, right? Well, you don't have to be famous to be great.
True.
And so I encourage my students all the time and the people I talk to all the time, you got to define what greatness means for you. Chase that greatness in writing your own story. So for me, that moment with that kid, that'll never make it on the news, nor should it. That'll never, I don't care about any of that, but it was a moment that I'll never forget the rest of my life. It made me better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's funny is like, so one of the guys I've been watching is Jordan Peterson. He's
Sure.
like a clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
And, one of the things he talks about like being a CEO and he's like, well, what's the measure of being like, who would want to do that? You have to give up your entire life.
Yes.
You have to do, you have to be really competitive, type A personality, all this stuff. You got to be able to walk over people and climb the ladder and all that. Like who would want that? And it seems to like, that's similar to to that particular message about being great. Like you don't have to be a CEO to be great because they don't it's not like, and being CEO doesn't necessarily mean that you are great.
No. And it doesn't mean that you have the respect and admiration of your people. So for me, one of the things, I guess the way to quantify it for me is, and again, I talk about this all the time too, and this will resonate with you, Scott, Lou Holtz, right? The famous football coach. So I heard him speak. He's a great speaker.
He is a great speaker. I've heard him too.
So you probably heard part of this speech, but I heard it several years ago and I think about it all the time. All of us to some degree are chasing personal success, right? And we measure that very easily. We know that we've been successful if we've accomplished our goals, whether they're short-term or long-term. That's how we measure success. Pretty straightforward. But Lou Holtz talked about the difference between success and significance.
Yep.
And so for me, I chase significance in my life every day as a husband, father, brother, counselor. And the difference is the successful person can look in the mirror at the end of the day and know they've accomplished something. The significant person can look all around them and know that they've helped other people become successful. When you die, your success dies. Period.
Right.
Whether it's $100 million, 10 great cars, 6 houses.
Well, Vincent Van Gogh, he's success.
Yes, it's scary. Yeah, there are exceptions to every rule, but I would argue that Vincent Van Gogh is significant. Like a lot of our some of the greatest minds in art or in music and entertainment and education. The reason those folks are significant is because they've created a legacy and they've inspired other people to become successful. And so that person who at the end of their day, his or her day, they've had a very successful life, but maybe no meaningful relationships or any that they counted as meaningful. It was always about chasing that next dollar or that next promotion, that next car, whatever it is for you.
Yeah.
And I don't begrudge anybody for that. Our journeys are our own. It's just not what I have an interest in. I want to be significant. I want to use my talents, strengths, and gifts to help other people become successful. That's the legacy I want to leave because it'll live long after I'm gone.
Right. So now, so you mentioned goal setting, and that's actually, I just wrote a little note because I wanted to come back to this because I've always had, not that I have issues with goal setting, but, and I think you just answered my question at the end here, so when I started running, I'm going to kind of take it to
You're
the personal.
crazy. I hate running. So
I don't, the whole joke in the running community is like my sport is your sport's punishment, right?
Without a doubt.
And I hated running. And I intend to do like a whole podcast on how I hated running.
Yeah.
But that'll be down the line. What was I going to say? So I started running and it's a very clear set of goals that you reach. So I couldn't run a mile day one. It was horrible, out of shape, whatever. Got to that first mile. Then I decided I want to run a 5K. And this is like all runners that just start especially as they're older.
The progression, right?
There's a scale, right? It's 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon. And some people go, you can keep going. There's 50-mile races. We've had people on this podcast that have done multi-100-mile races.
Crazy.
One guy did a 10 times Ironman, which I can't even fathom.
How do you live through it? You know what I mean?
He did it and he posted, all over. So Frank Fumick was his name. Really good dude. We've had him on the podcast twice. And I think when we first had him on, he had done a 5 times Ironman, which I thought was crazy. And then to do a 10 times one is like, I can't, you're on the bike for days, really, you're days. So, just an incredible achievement. But, for me is like, so I did the marathon and I found that what happened when, I told you I kind of hit this wall where it was like, did the marathon. And then for some reason, like improving my marathon time, it wasn't enough to keep me in that sort of training mode that I needed to be in order to accomplish that. So, and that's really sort of how I wound up doing the Ironman was I needed something more.
Absolutely.
And so I did that. And when I just did it. And this is like my personality. People kind of know this about me is that I'm very sort of impulsive about making decisions. And then when I do it, I'm after it.
You're all in.
Yeah. But then what happens is that I get there and I do it and now I don't have,
Now what? What's the next
I've
thing?
signed up for another one, but I don't feel, we talk about losing the fear, which certainly is part of it. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe part of this is my goal setting. Am I stuck too much on one goal without seeing a bigger, broader picture? Which seems sort of like what you said towards the end there when you mentioned like family and
Yeah. So to me, everything that I try to do as an extension of, and I don't know if this will answer your question, and you and I are just getting to know one another, so I don't know if this will resonate with you or anybody listening. But for me, I look at it differently, right? So your world is running and Ironman, which is run, bike, and swim, correct? Yeah. I don't think in that order, but
it doesn't matter. Bike, run. Yeah. They don't want you to swim at the end because you're more likely to die.
To drown, exactly. I wouldn't get through one of them. So, but for me, in terms of how I train now, I'm much.
You'd be surprised. You would fight. You would. You know what?
But only if
you know why?
Because
you're pig-headed, just like me.
But only if I wanted to. You know what I mean? I have no. So, but
you know what? And this is why you're like me. Because if I sat here and I told you that you couldn't do it,
then I would. Then
you'd want to do it.
Yeah. So for me, it's not the fear of. Could I do it? I would will myself.
You want to make that commitment.
Yeah. And so just in terms of, like you said, the goal setting.
Yeah.
For me, I look at it a little bit differently in that. So just to kind of draw parallels into my world. One of the things I'm very passionate about outside of my work is weightlifting. I love to lift weights and I love to power lift. So, deadlifts, squats.
Yep.
And in our world, very similar to yours, mile times are really important when you run and to pace yourself through the race and to be able to finish. Right. So for us in the lifting world, and a lot of you that are listening probably do both, you lift and run, but it's chasing that PR. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where do you start and how long does it take you to get to that number that you're chasing? But I never look at it for me. Okay. So at right around 200 pounds, I hit a 500-pound deadlift. I think the reason that I don't, and this is sort of, I think maybe how we view it from a little bit different lens. I view the weightlifting as an extension of writing that story.
Right.
So for me, it's not the PR on the deadlift or the PR on the squat. It's simply, okay, I maximized myself on that day to the point where I was able to get that lift or do that presentation in the best way possible. But that doesn't define where my motivation comes from. And it's certainly not going to limit the goals that I'm going to set for myself. So I look at it more globally in terms of it's all encompassing. So the goals that I have are not just specific to training. It might be a specific training goal, but that training goal, if I reach it, only has proven to me that I am maximizing the talent, strengths, and gifts that I've been given for that day.
So can you deadlift 500 today?
Who knows? Who knows? You know what I mean? Probably not, because I've got 3 herniated discs in my back.
Yeah, don't try it.
Now
he's going to go try it.
No, I won't. Not today, because my wife will kill me.
Right, then I'm going to drag me into court because I challenged him to do it.
But my best deadlift came at 40 years old. And
I've had similar. I lift too during training, and I lift twice a week.
Yeah.
And I do like a really like when I used to powerlift in college.
Yeah.
But what I did now is like I do like more of like a universal kind of thing where I have like 4 machines lined up and I just go through them and circle through them over and over and over.
Just get a good hit and keep
half an hour. Yes, I'm done. Perfect. And I got to tell you, like it works.
You get a great trainer response.
Yeah,
and because it's so different than the running.
Yeah.
And the swimming and the biking. So everybody in terms of fitness and stuff, and you know this, doing the running and stuff that you do, it's such an important part of my life because it's a huge release for me from
Absolutely.
All the other stuff. You just turn the lights out and I don't mean literally turn the lights out, but my phone.
It's like a coping mechanism. Yes. It's a place where you can be alone in your thoughts and you can think about things that you can't think of when you're at work, and
you can cut up and just be
Just move it up.
Yeah, I train with some great people that are not only great lifting partners but family. I've known them for a long time, and so it's just that release, but for me it's not, well, what incentive do I have to go back into the gym tomorrow because I got a lift I never thought I would get? For me, it's more about, okay, I'm proving to myself that I'm really tapping into the stuff that I'm working on in every area of my life. And that's the stuff that keeps me motivated.
And I think, to a certain degree, I get these goals in my head and I attach myself to them.
Correct.
And then I think what needs to happen, and it's funny because I've heard this message before. And, I told you before, like, I like to do things on my own. I'm kind of like a loner that way in a little bit.
Sure.
It's because I get pigheaded and I don't listen to what people say until I actually experience, like, oh, maybe that guy was right.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not, people talk about how it's about the journey, and then you're on the journey, but then you hit the end of the journey, and it's like,
but there is no
but
end.
there shouldn't be an end.
There's no end.
And, it should, and really what I should be looking for is more like, all right, it's like, yeah, I've accomplished these goals, but in the end, all this time that I'm going to have from, say, today until the end, I have a choice of when I spend that time and what I do. And if to a certain degree, it's like, you want to go out and have fun, or if you want to just bag the workout here and there or whatever, if that's what if your goals are fine with that, then that's fine. But if I signed up for another Ironman, I can't not work out and just expect to go out there and do it.
No.
So the choice really is, and it's a choice. And the problem is that sometimes it doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like you're kind of just rolling along with life.
Everything is a choice.
But it's a choice.
Everything is a choice.
Right.
The only choice that we do not have is death. Everything else is a choice.
Well, some people do. Well, that's another story.
You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, no, I know what you're saying. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like, it's almost like the short-term goals, they're nice, but they should never really overtake sort of the greater picture. And I think that's what I've allowed internally for me to happen to me is that,
and we all do, I think.
Yeah, to a certain degree, sure.
Because we're emotional people.
Yeah,
our emotions get in the way.
Well, fear is an emotion, and all all that. You talk about, and even a certain degree. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Is I talk a lot about motivation on the program, and staying motivated and being motivated. And then every once in a while, I hear this theory, which is that motivation as a whole is an emotion, and that it can be fleeting, and that you shouldn't rely on motivation as much as you rely on like determination or discipline. Grit is a good word.
Yeah.
So do you have do you kind of agree with that sentiment, or?
To some degree, yes. I think based on, if you think about what we've just been talking about and what you shared with me around goals being emotional, it would certainly correlate with your experience with. I think you've run 6 marathons and 1 Ironman.
Two Ironman and 6 marathons.
Yeah,
well, the Ironman was funny because I actually finished the one that I finished, and for some reason it wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted it to be, for some reason. And so there was another one 2 months later, and I just did it, and I beat my time by like 18 to 20 minutes or something like that. And that one, you know what it was? I'll tell you what it was. It was the first one I survived.
Yeah. You knew you made it.
I just wanted to finish, and that was the goal, and that's all. But I felt like when I finished, I had something left in the tank, and I didn't give it every ounce that I had.
See, that's awesome. That's grit, though. That's grit.
Yeah, and so I did it again, and that time when I finished, it was like, I even just now saying it, like my heart's like, oof, like
it's real.
Yeah, and even like towards the end of that race, I was like, man, it was awesome. I think to a certain degree, when you do an event like that, I had legitimate concern for my health and safety.
As you should.
So it's like, I just wanted to finish, and I wanted to finish intact. And then once I got that, it's like, all right, you know what? I got that checked off. Let's go and push it. And, I said, there's only 2 ways I'm going to finish. There's only 2 ways I'm not going to finish. And one is if I don't make a time and like a time cutoff and they pull me off the course, or if I hurt myself to the point where I can't
finish.
Right. And other than that, I'm pretty much finishing by accident. It's like I just
finish.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what happened, and it was great. But I love this chat because I feel like I'm kind of at this point right now where I have 5 months left till Ironman. I know. And I got to drop at least 20 pounds, which I know I can do because I've done it before.
Sure you can.
It's just I'm at this point where I know I have to turn it on. And I feel like there's been times where I have, and then I've had kind of a bad 2018. And luck is like, one of those things where I've been sick. I've been just weird things happening.
Yeah.
And part of that, I don't like to believe in luck and that kind of stuff, but I feel like I've had a bad 2018 so far. Anyway, got a little injury.
We're early on. That's a good news.
I know. I got a lot of time. Well, 2017 was awesome for me. It really was. I got married, the 2 Ironman races, and I felt really good about the whole year. And literally, I did the episode here. I do a New Year's resolution special, and I got sick for that. My wife had a kidney stone. We've already hit our deductible for health insurance. It's been crazy. So, it's been a nutty year, but I definitely have time, 5 months to turn it around.
Sure.
It's just a matter of like clicking that switch and getting in that phase. And I think this conversation has definitely helped me.
Oh, it's awesome.
Because it's kind of like, it's like, I think I've had these thoughts in my head about where I'm going and what I'm doing and what I need to do to get where I want to be. And I think I needed like a little, almost validation or someone to say,
sometimes
just talking to someone.
Yeah. And I think, just getting to know you, but people in general, to me, when I listen to you talk, like there's not a doubt in my mind you'll get yourself ready. But to me, I don't view it as, okay, I've got 5 months to get myself prepared for the Ironman. To me, my mindset is, well, are you going to use these 5 months to fill the pages of your book with the stuff that's going to propel you well past the Ironman, whether you did it or not, because you've done 2 of them already, right?
Yeah.
So that's, to me, the Ironman is no longer, it's not the pinnacle, it's not the goal, because you've accomplished that twice.
Right. Which is kind of what we were just talking about, which is
exactly. And that's why,
because even now I'm slipping back into that. I got to get to the Ironman, and you're like, wait a minute, pal, we just talked about this.
Yeah. But that's just me,
right.
There might be some
people, no, you make a good point, because that's,
and from my lens, I'm like, well, I don't view it that way. It's not chasing the Ironman. It's this notion that tomorrow when you wake up, you get to fill the pages any way you want. If part of that page for the day involves you doing something that brings you one step closer to getting yourself, because to me, when I look at something like the Ironman, and I've only seen it on TV and YouTube clips, and I work with a guy that runs them, and I've just so much respect and admiration for the way he and folks like you live their lives to prepare for something like that. To me, that's a mental toughness and a mindset that is not specific to one event. It's a mental toughness and a mindset that you have shaped and created throughout your entire adult life without even realizing it. Even when the Ironman wasn't even in your mind.
Yep.
Because there's a reason why, and I don't know what it is by percentage, you probably do, but there's a reason why only X% of people on this planet have ever done that.
Yeah. I think it's like 1% for marathons. It's way less for Ironman.
I'm sure it is. I mean, 400 million people roughly in the United States?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. The marathons are actually getting way more popular. Like,
of course they are.
They are filling up
which is awesome.
Yep.
But to me, it's not looking at it as, well, I've got 5 months to get ready for the Ironman. I don't look at life that way. You've got tomorrow to get better.
Yeah.
Period.
Right. And which is, that's the message, really.
Yeah.
So I love it, man. I love it. What was I going to say? I felt like I had something on the tip of my tongue, and I just lost it. I don't know.
Happens to me all the time.
Listen, I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you,
I had a blast, I think I got something from this that I think I'm going to be able to use and to mold. I know what I was going to say. And I think, so one of the reasons that I've sort of like had this switch over to like, almost like I'm feeling not as successful, or I'm feeling like not as into it, but like Ironman training it's a multiple training it's like 2 a days.
Yeah.
In football. It's like you
for
can't
months on end.
Right. And I can notch one of those off at work in my hour at lunch, which I'm lucky that I'm able to do that.
Sure.
And then I have to do either a morning session or a night session. Some days when I'm really motivated, I do 2. I do three workouts a day, which is nuts, but I got it done. So what happens is you finish the race and then you go to 1 workout a day and you feel like you're a failure, but but you feel you're still doing more workouts than most people.
You're doing more than 95% of the people on the planet, even after the Ironman.
But you don't feel as though you're into it because you're not doing as many as you were doing. So it's kind of like, you mentioned like kind of like attacking the day and living. Like, I know what it's like to want to do that and be that person. And because I'm not living up to those expectations and thoughts, even though I'm still working out and doing something,
sure,
it makes you feel like I'm not saying I feel like a failure. I just feel like I'm not attached to the goal that I have.
Because the goal is singular, but
Right.
Your life is separate from that, right? So
Right. That's almost that whole outlook in reverse. Almost.
When I work with pro athletes individually on this idea of mental toughness, and a lot of the guys I work with, and you could probably relate to this as well because you're a college athlete and have participated in the Ironman. One of the biggest things I see with the pro athletes that I work with is that their whole identity, the majority of their identity, comes from their sport.
Yeah.
Right. So I work with a minor league baseball player right now. He's reported for optional workouts, but we still talk a few days a week and work through some stuff together. And to the point you were just talking about, his whole identity is he's a baseball player.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to get him to work on is, bro, you got to fill your backpack with other stuff.
Right.
Like, so you go to baseball practice tomorrow and you get hurt. You're out for the season.
What do you got?
Who are you?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good point.
Who are you? Because when I see you, and I tell them this all the time, I see a very smart, driven, those things are not specific to your occupation. You've made them specific to your occupation. And I understand why, because you're trying to play at the most elite level in your sport and you have a legitimate chance to do it. But once you start to define yourself by your occupation, by your training, by your faith, whatever it is, you're not filling your backpack with all of the other stuff that fuels you and fills you. And that to me is the stuff that matters the most. Like, I take a personal inventory a lot, and I do it all the time. Like, what's in my backpack? And I want to know that ideally, and you got to be real honest with yourself, but I want to know that the majority of that backpack is filled with my family and my faith. And, we talk about work all the time. It's in the backpack because it has to be.
But it's buried under there.
And it doesn't mean I don't care about it.
Right.
I love my work. I work really hard at it, but I don't.
Not at the expense of.
No, I don't live to work.
Yeah.
I don't. And so this particular kid, and it sounds a lot like you, like you're defining your success and failure in training based on the completion of the Ironman, but your backpack is filled with so much more stuff than that. And we got to take joy in all that other stuff. That's great stuff. We can't quantify it in a swim time, a run time, and a bike time, but it can be quantified in so many other ways that fill us, and that's the stuff that we live for.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And it's a good point. It's a good point. And, my wife doesn't get too mad at me for training. She's pretty happy. You gotta support. Yeah. My kid's happy. So,
life is
a lot
good.
of things to be thankful for. I shouldn't really be complaining too much. So, listen, I appreciate your time.
It's been an honor, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome coming down. I thank you so much. I'm fighting a little cold here, I know, but
fighting through it.
Yeah, we're getting through it. I'm really looking forward to listening to your podcast when it comes out.
Thank you so much.
You got any ETA on when we're going to see the first episode?
Yeah, so we're going to launch. We have a launch date of March 8th, and we're gonna upload a bunch on March 8th in the days following, and then our goal is to try to do it at least once a week. And we're going to split time between me in studio and guests as well. I've got some awesome guests lined up already. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to put that out on our webpage as well. Put it on the discussion group. I'm sure after people hear you on here, they're going to want to hear more of you as well.
I appreciate it.
But they should listen to my podcast first.
No doubt. Yes, they should.
Make sure you listen to all my episodes first. Then you can listen to John's.
Absolutely. That's fair.
Awesome. And I look forward to being a guest on your show as well.
Can't wait to have you, man. Thanks so much.
All right. We're going to wrap things up for today. I know I kept this is a little bit longer than my usual podcast. I felt like we were going back and forth pretty good, though. I've kept you here way too long.
Oh, it's all right.
And I'm off to Phoenix. Going to run the Phoenix half. I know I was going to do the full. I've been sick. I've been hurt. Here's the excuses coming at you, but I've downgraded to the half. Hopefully I'm going to come back, refresh, reset. And, I love the discussion today, and I like where things are going. One other thing to mention, I got this thing set up on YouTube now. So if you search on YouTube for Ordinary Marathoner, you actually find our page. I think I uploaded like the last, 10 episodes or so, and we're going to try to upload them every time going forward. It's just another avenue where you can listen to the podcast. I know, if you got some extra time on the computer, it's easy to kind of just throw on the YouTube in the background, throw in some headphones and listen to it as opposed to carrying your phone all around. So, it's just one other avenue, one other outlet for us there. I love having it. And, it's really nice putting work. And I know you probably think this too, John. It's like you build something, it's your own. And it's like every time you do something towards the project, it's like it just makes you feel good.
Yeah, man. It's always, you always take more ownership and pride in it when it's yours. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And I think that's a good message for everyone. But on that note, I'm off to Phoenix, and we will talk again next week. I got a couple possible guests to bring on. I don't know what order they're going to be. So we're going to just leave that until next week. And until then, always remember, when it comes to running, I'm no expert. I'm just ordinary.